Hi, I'm Kyle and I'm a WORLDwrite volunteer. I want to argue that sexual monitoring should be scrapped. There are two main reasons why such monitoring should be abandoned. One, it is an invasion of privacy, and two, it achieves nothing for genuine equality, equality of opportunity, or tolerance. Some people may personally not have any problem at all with disclosing their sexual orientation on a form, whether it's at work, in the voluntary sector, or at a blood donor clinic. But the fact remains that it is absolutely nobody's business in any of these environments who you have sex with. Who you tell is entirely up to you, and the mere presence of a prefer not to say option on sexual monitoring forms doesn't justify the intrusive question in the first place, as plenty of people may feel obliged to answer just to keep the person handing out the forms happy. Monitoring of things like sexual orientation also collapses the public and private spheres by rejecting the notion that certain things are not relevant to certain places or contexts. Instead, such monitoring assumes that everything about a person is important and holds relevance to everything that they do, at all times and in all places. Here, I think it needs to be stated plainly again. Who you have sex with is about as relevant to your work or voluntary activities as what you eat. There is simply no reason for the question. With this in mind, I want to look at the reasons proponents of monitoring give for asking about people's sexual orientation. They say, monitoring sexuality has brought us face to face with some people's prejudice and has provided us with some sources of amusement, such as when people return their form with the word normal written across the LGBT section. Or some people who haven't understood the question and come up to us and ask, "What is this? I have regular sex with a woman. Am I homo or hetero?" So in our own little way, we are challenging and educating people. So, this kind of monitoring allows staff to A. meet prejudice face to face, and B. laugh at their apparently ignorant volunteers. Hardly progressive. And the notion that ticking boxes brings staff face to face with prejudice is largely irrelevant and often probably inaccurate, since staff can never know what is serious or what is a joke on a form, or whether the volunteer is simply ridiculing the entire question. Has anything changed for the better in terms of equality for LGBT people because their sexual orientation has been disclosed on a form? The answer is clearly no, and even the proponents of such monitoring would have to admit that real progress is achieved through real political action and campaigning, not through statistical monitoring. To take this criticism further, monitoring of sexual orientation actually damages serious campaigning for equality. It is politically and morally abhorrent to presume LGBT people are vulnerable and in need of special protection. If certain individuals request special protection from employers or staff due to genuine or specific concerns, then that's a different matter. But this kind of monitoring makes the assumption of vulnerability on behalf of millions of people without any prior evidence. As an aside, how reliable a form of data collection is it? Firstly, large quantities of people are likely to tick prefer not to say, just to avoid the whole issue. Secondly, LGBT people are probably somewhat less likely to answer the question than straight people, and are therefore more likely to choose prefer not to say. This could mean organisations with absolutely no prejudices whatsoever get very few, or indeed none, of their volunteers selecting anything other than heterosexual, and could then face good practice policing. This also presumes that everybody else is a potential threat to LGBT people, and that this threat can be neutralised through simple monitoring. Even if such box ticking did reveal serious prejudicial beliefs, which is highly unlikely, the monitoring does nothing to actually change the attitudes of those people. Assuming the worst about people we don't know is a sign of chronic distrust and needs to be countered. A good first step would be to eliminate this monitoring altogether, which presumes both the vulnerability of LGBT people and the potential danger of everybody else. Monitoring sexual orientation is about as useful as a CCTV camera focused on the front door of an office block so as to record the ethnic makeup of entrants. It reveals a desire to measure everything whilst changing and doing nothing. It covers up the failure to actually tackle real discrimination where it does exist in a focused and pragmatic way, and instead sidesteps the whole issue of doing something about a problem by instead merely measuring it. It's unnecessary, useless, and intrusive. It's also politically lazy, as it avoids doing real work to challenge real discrimination and inequality.